Grieving mothers often ask me how I do it. Sometimes I look like I have it all together, that I'm functioning and doing so well. How do you do that? I'm going to begin to share that story. I am Christy Bundukamara, Dr. B. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner with 20 plus years of experience, but that's not where my experience comes from. My experience comes from losing children, more than one. And it started back in 2005 when I lost my son Johnny in a drowning accident and completely turned my world upside down. And then my son Reggie was diagnosed with DRPLA, and my daughter Miah as well. And Reggie and Miah are my two biological children, and Johnny and 4 others are my adopted children. But this is how the story began of my grief with losing Johnny and learning, like, how do you move on from that? How do you keep fighting and keep being a mother to your other children, keep working? And it boils down to 2 things that you must do. And I'm going to have other videos on, practical steps. But there are 2 choices that you must make. If you have lost a child, that is the worst thing that can happen to a mother. And so to give these arbitrary things and to share my story and act like it's easy, it's not. But there's 2 things you must do. And I'm going to say them now, and I'm going to repeat them over and over again. You must choose life. Do not take your own life. You must choose to find life and purpose in this life and happiness in this life. And you must never give up on trying to find that happiness, because it will not be easy. There are some days that you will want to give up. I remember when I first started trying to be an encouraging person that is going through trials, and it was when Reggie was diagnosed with DRPLA, which is a rare neurodegenerative condition. Johnny had died several years before. My teenage girls were rebelling, and I was a professor at a school of nursing. And I was constantly sharing my story of mental strength, like how I was doing it, how I was continuing to process my grief, which a lot was anticipatory grief at that time. I was anticipating that something bad might happen to Reggie. I was grieving the loss of having a normal child. He was having catastrophic seizures every day, sometimes 12 in a day. In and out of the ICU, and I just kept working on myself. And honestly, just those 2 things. The power of choice, it's all we have control of. We don't have control of these things, and that feels helpless. Oftentimes it feels hopeless for me. But the only thing we have is the power of our choice. And so the must-dos are the choose life and choose to never give up. I also was choosing to never give up on fighting for my children, that I could find a treatment or even a cure for DRPLA. We traveled the world, and we truly believed that Reggie would be healed. And then on October 30th, 2016, Reggie passed away. And although I had already lost a child, I believed that Reggie was going to be healed. Had been fighting for him for 10 years. I didn't know how to do it again. It's like I can't do this again. But I did. I'm here. And I remember that day very, very vividly. And, I could play those things over and over again in my head and say, oh, I could have done this and could have done this. And what if I did this? Would he still be here? And if you are a grieving parent, especially a grieving mother, you know that it feels impossible to stop that replay. It is possible, and we'll talk about that in other videos. But the core thing is you've got to choose life and choose to never give up on this life and finding your happiness. Several years after Reggie passed is when I began to share what we now call the Mentally Strong Method, and I opened a clinic, and I felt like I was turning my pain into purpose. Miah has DRPLA. But she had a much milder presentation. She was happy. She presumed healthy, like she had never been in the ICU. The only time she spent the night in the hospital were for scheduled tests. Like she was not sick. And so I am turning my pain into purpose and began sharing the Mentally Strong Method and how I was surviving, how I was choosing life, how I was never giving up on myself and my happiness. And I had plans, I knew that Miah had this degenerative condition, but again, she was happy and healthy. And so we had plans for 10 plus years. And I'm also dealing with an anticipatory death of my husband, who also has DRPLA. But I remember, kind of distinctly at the 5-year anniversary of Reggie's death, feeling for the first time like, I got this. I can do this. It's hard. It was hard. 5 years. Now, this is 5 years of actively grieving, actively making sure that I'm not ruminating, not going into those negative thoughts, actively practicing what I call controlled grief, actively practicing the Mentally Strong Method. 5 years before I felt a little bit of confidence in that. And I often hear from parents that it's been 20 years, 30 years, and they haven't done any of that work. And it's still very difficult to choose these two things, to choose life and to never give up. There's more to this. This is just the first step. So that was October 2021. And I would have a Halloween party every year in honor of his death. And just last night, I was looking at those pictures. Because on December 14th, 2021, Miah died in her sleep. I didn't find her till probably 3 hours after she was dead. And I attempted CPR, and we did everything. There was no life. So now I have lost all of my biological children, one of my adopted children. And I have to confess, I haven't even started the grieving process for Miah. So do not think just because I can stand up here and share my pain means I'm stronger than you. I'm not. I always tell people I was depressed way before I had a reason to be depressed. I'm just using skills. I'm using things that, we have to actually consciously grieve. And one, you've got to choose life. And you've got to choose to never give up. Our only power is our choice. Many of you probably have other living children, maybe grandchildren. But even if you have nothing, and sometimes I feel like that, there is a reason you are here. And to be able to actually find strength from this, you must choose these two things first. And I know there's several of you listening right now going, I can't even do that. And yesterday I had a little breakdown, and I had to remember just these two things. Like, it's not always about these grand therapeutic interventions and the mentally strong method. Yes, we do need to be able to think, organize, and make choices in line with what we want. But when you've lost a child, you don't even know what you want. And I know that you understand that. Choose life and choose to never give up. We can do this. I am just beginning in my journey. Reggie died in 2016, Miah in 2021, and it's only 7 months from that time. I've only scratched the surface. I'm not saying this is an easy journey. We have been given one of the most difficult journeys. But we can do it. Please choose life and choose to never give up. I know that you can find your strength. You are mentally strong.